The world didn't just lose a famous singer, it lost a story no one truly understood. His songs felt warm and comforting, like everything in his life was perfect. But behind that gentle voice, there were real struggles, quiet pain, and moments he kept hidden from everyone. For years, fans held on to the image they loved. But it wasn't the whole truth. Now, after decades of silence, someone who knew him deeply is finally speaking. And her words don't just bring back memories, they uncover regrets and truths that were never meant to be heard, making you wonder what he was truly feeling all along. The boy who stole everyone's heart. To the world, John Denver was the definition of calm. But that version of him didn't come from an easy beginning. Henry John Deutschendorf Jr. was born in Roswell, New Mexico, in 1943. His father was a strict Air Force pilot who believed more in discipline than emotion. The family moved constantly. Just when life started to feel normal, it would change again. That kind of life made it hard to feel settled. His father was distant and tough, not the kind of parent who showed affection easily. That emotional gap stayed with John as he grew up. Music became the one place where he felt whole. When he played guitar, he felt free. When he sang, he felt heard. By the late 1960s, he joined the Mitchell Trio, a folk group that helped him step into the spotlight. But the real turning point came when he went solo. In the 1970s, John Denver exploded into fame. Take Me Home, Country Roads became unforgettable. Rocky Mountain High captured his love for nature. Thank God I'm a Country Boy brought energy and joy. He sold tens of millions of records. He became a symbol of environmental activism before it was common. He even starred in, oh God. Everything seemed positive and inspiring. The world gave him a nickname, the Sunshine Boy. Bright, warm, full of life. But even in the middle of all that success, something else was quietly taking shape. It stayed hidden behind the image everyone loved. The same boy who once felt alone had not completely left those feelings behind. And as his fame grew, those hidden struggles grew too. The story behind Annie's song. Just as John Denver was finding his voice, he also found someone who would change his life. Her name was Annie Martell. It was 1966. John was still performing with the Mitchell Trio when he walked into a college concert in Minnesota. Annie was different, calm, steady, and real. In a life that often felt uncertain, Annie felt like home. They married just 1 year later, in 1967. They settled in Aspen, Colorado, surrounded by mountains and endless skies. They adopted 2 children, Zachary and Anna Kate, and built a life many could only imagine. Annie was more than John's wife. She was the center of his life. But the moment that would change their love story forever didn't come during a celebration. It came after a fight. In 1973, John and Annie had one of their worst arguments. Words were said that couldn't be taken back. John walked away and went skiing alone. On the Ajax chairlift high above Aspen, everything around him felt calm. The fury started to fade. Instead, he felt regret and a realization of how much Annie meant to him. Then something amazing happened. The music came all at once. In 10 minutes, he wrote one of the most renowned love songs ever. That song became Annie's song. To the world, it sounded like pure love. It hit the top of the charts and became a wedding favorite. But there was something far more real underneath the wonderful words. The song was an apology. It was John's way of conveying what he couldn't say during the fight. It wasn't only about love. It was about keeping it when things became tough. That changes how you hear it. Because suddenly, it's not just a great love song. It's a human thing. It shows that even the strongest partnerships have hard times. Love isn't always easy or peaceful. It can be messy and emotional. Fame, fury, fractured love. From the outside, everything still looked golden. But behind that calm image, something far more intense was building. Fame crashed into his life all at once. Tours became constant. Expectations became heavier. Every performance had to be perfect. And every time he stepped on stage, he wasn't just John anymore, he was John Denver, the man the world expected him to be. That pressure followed him home. Long nights, Endless travel, and the need to stay perfect began to wear him down. Alcohol became a way to cope, but it didn't solve anything. Beneath all that fame were wounds that had never fully healed. John had grown up with a distant, strict father. That kind of childhood leaves marks. As his life became more demanding, those buried emotions began to rise. At home, arguments with Annie became more frequent. Voices were raised, words became sharper. Annie later revealed the frightening side of John Denver that the public rarely saw. Friends described nights of screaming fights so intense they shattered the quiet calm of their Aspen home. In one infamous story, during the bitter stages of their divorce, John reportedly took a chainsaw to their marital bed, cutting it entirely in half. In another frightening account, he wrapped the chainsaw cord around Annie's neck after a fight. This is a scary picture for anyone who only knew the sweet-voiced singer. The breaking point came in 1982. John and Annie divorced after 15 years of marriage. John tried to find love again with actress Cassandra Delaney, and they had a daughter, Jessie Bell. But the same problems remained. Fame, worry, and unresolved emotional pain loomed over everything. Annie's response was quietly brave. Instead of putting on a show, she chose to keep Zachary and Anna Kate safe from the trouble surrounding their father. She built a calm space for herself and became the family's unseen anchor. John's public and private lives couldn't have been more different. On stage, he gave millions hope and love. Off stage, he was unpredictable, restless, and locked in a loop of anger and self-doubt. What really happened on October 12th? John Denver's day on October 12, 1997, started like any other, but it ended in tragedy. The artist, 53 years old at the time, was still chasing the thrill of flying. That day, he got into his new Rutan Long Easy experimental plane at Monterey Peninsula Airport to practice touch-and-go landings. Witnesses later said the engine sputtered. Then, out of nowhere, the plane dove into the cold, gray waters of Monterey Bay. The crash happened instantly. John died immediately from multiple blunt force injuries. There was no mayday call, no chance to escape. Later, investigators pieced together the sad chain of events. The cause was heartbreakingly simple pilot error. John ran out of fuel in one tank and didn't switch to the other in time. The fuel selector valve was in an inconvenient place behind the pilot's left shoulder, requiring an unnatural move in a split second. It was a small, almost undetectable mistake, and it cost him his life. As news spread, so did rumors. Some wondered if alcohol was involved, pointing to John's past DUIs, which had cost him his medical license to fly. Others wondered if self-harm was possible, but later toxicology tests proved there was no alcohol in his system. The truth was quieter, but more tragic. A man who loved what he did was killed by chance and human error. In the middle of all the media attention, Annie Martell stayed calm and dignified. She didn't attend the huge public memorial. Instead, she chose to remember him privately, sending a small wreath with a meaningful note. There were no big gestures. Annie's grief was private, serious, and close. It showed how deep their relationship was with love, suffering, forgiveness, and a lasting bond, even decades after their divorce. October 12, 1997, was the day the world lost a star whose light had seemed to have no end. The Sunshine Boy's light went out, but the world kept playing his songs, not knowing the complicated story behind the headlines. Then Annie finally speaks. Annie Martell kept quiet for 25 years. She put all her energy into raising Zachary and Anna Kate, making a quiet life away from the spotlight. Her silence wasn't empty. It was love away to protect her kids and honor the life they had together. In October 2022, at 78 years old, Annie chose to speak. She sat down with Mo Rocca for the Mobituaries podcast in Aspen. Fans had been waiting decades for this moment. She spoke honestly and calmly. She confirmed many of the rumors that had been going around for years. She talked about John's rage, the problems of fame, and the temptations of long tours, including affairs that caused grief and problems. She talked about yelling, tight silences, and emotions so strong they left wounds. But then Annie revealed something no one expected. She divulged a secret that no one else knew John, and Annie made up in private months before his awful crash. Late one night, they spoke, cried, and had a moment of understanding. John played, perhaps love, praying for forgiveness and peace. Annie kept this experience to herself for decades. It was a loving gesture, a way to protect something private and sacred. She explained why she had been quiet for so long. It was about keeping her family safe, letting them heal, and preserving the beauty of John's music. Her words weren't mean. They were honest and full of lasting affection. In 2026, as new generations discover John Denver's music through streaming platforms and TikTok tributes, Annie remains in Aspen at 79. She is still moved by his music and the memories they made together. Music still comforts her by bringing back memories of both the good and bad times. Annie's voice has changed John Denver's legacy. It is no longer just about songs and celebrity. It is about openness, forgiveness, and loving someone, even after they hurt you or after you've lost them. The light he brought into the world may have gone out too soon, but it still shines through her story. The man who sang the world's sweetest songs hid storms behind every note. Annie finally lifted the veil on love, rage, and secrets no one expected. The truth is darker, deeper, and more unforgettable than the legend itself. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to uncover more shocking stories that shake everything you thought you knew. Thanks for watching.